Dan, I have a confession to make. I have
Crabs.
beard dandruff. So close.
So much worse.
I know. Look away, I'm hideous. All seriousness. All serious.
All serious.
All serious. Me serious now. No funny. No more. Frankenstein. No fire. Bad. Ah. In all seriousness, many of us men with facial hair have some sort of dry skin under their face fur. I have particularly dry skin, especially on my face, around my nose, my eyes, ears. That beard and mustache, they draw a ton of moisture from your skin in order to stay healthy, leaving the skin underneath sometimes dry, itchy, red, flaky, leading to the beard dandruff. And I struggled with it for quite a while. Struggled to, rein it in. Then I found thebeardstruggle.com. They use all natural products, never tested on animals, that your face, body, and beard will love.
They have day oils to protect your beard from UV rays and dirt and grime, and it keeps your skin from drying out. All the troubles the day can bring. And they have night oils to help moisturize and rejuvenate your skin and beard while you sleep. Not to mention, as of right now, they have 8 different fragrances. According to this.
That's what they tell me. That's what they tell me.
Do you want to know what they are?
I do. I want you to.
Ready?
I want you to pronounce them perfectly.
Okay. Here we go. Ready?
Okay. Yeah.
From Alfheim's Forest, which has the scent of woodsy, leather and spices, to Hjonir's Home,
Close
with
enough.
scents of greenery, amber and musk, to Valhalla's Gates, with essences of citrus, amber, sandalwood and vanilla.
And right now I'm using the Aesir's Triumph, which I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, which has the scent of sweet incense, tobacco, whiskey, and cinnamon. And my wife absolutely loves it. Of course, I haven't gotten one from them that she hasn't loved. So, and if you can't choose, just get the sample pack, which comes with 6 of their mainstay scents and 5 milliliter bottles of nighttime elixir, so you can decide what is best for you. But they have so much more than just oils: balms, wax, shampoo, conditioner, butters, cologne, natural deodorant, skincare products, heated beard straighteners, combs, brushes, shaving kits, growth kits, merch. List goes on and on and on. No matter what kind, length, or style of facial hair you have, the Beard Struggle has the products you need.
You get a free gift for purchases over $50, then you get another free gift for purchases over $100, and all orders over $65 get free shipping. You have a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you really have nothing to lose. And be sure to use our exclusive coupon code TORTURE19 at checkout to get 19% off your entire order. That's TORTURE19 at checkout for 19% off your entire order.
Torture19 at checkout, or click on the link in the show notes. TheBeardStruggle.com. Do what's right for your beard. Do what's right for your face. The subject of this series is one of the most famous prison riots in the history of the United States. In a time of political unrest and a new type of prisoner, we'll see how, fueled by events that had taken place in other prisons around the country, when tensions between inmates and the top brass hit a breaking point, all you can do is stop talking and violently take over. However, it's not the initial rebellion that this event is most known for, but after a 4-day standoff, several dozens of prisoners and hostages being left severely injured or dead in the unbelievably bloody, racially charged retaking of the prison. And then the massive cover-up that will be traced all the way to the eventual Vice President of the United States. Today we give you episode 1 of Attica. I'm Kevin Young.
All the world is made of faith and dust and pixie dust. And I am Dieter Dan.
This is torture. Ooh, boy.
I was meant to say faith and trust, but, I said faith and dust and pixie dust. That's what happens when you're illiterate people. Go to school. learn how to read them there books.
You want to go again?
No, it's all good. It's in there forevermore.
I'm feeling pretty good. I got that in one shot, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
That's kind of a miracle in itself. So if he's got to go again, I'm willing to do it.
Nah, that's all good. It'd be okay if I was trying to pronounce somebody's really awkward name, but no,
yeah.
I don't have any brain for that but myself.
Yeah, luckily not too many of those that I got to get to today. So it's all American, so I think I can pronounce everything.
America. I don't think you need to know how to pronounce is freedom. That's it.
Well, buddy, how you doing?
Good. And more good, all right, counting down, trying to move house,
yeah,
you yourself.
Yeah.
So it won't be long before I'm out of Taylor Swift's crotch area, wherever the hell I am right now, and people can't see me, so
no.
For the record, I have Taylor Swift as my background right now, and yeah,
I have the same background, except it's Alf.
Yeah. You're not in Alf's crotch area, though. This isn't intentional either. I thought the image was the other way, if you get me. But anyway, yeah, I'm good, though. How are you? How's things?
I'm good. A little tired. We were talking right before we started the show. This was going to be a longer series. I have it broken down just to 2 because they fucked me over at work, and now I'm working a bunch of 12s probably the next couple months, and I'm really tired, and it sucks, but, you gotta do what you gotta do. Fuck the man.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck work, but please pay me still.
Yeah.
I have bills.
100%.
Yeah. Well, but we got a lot of shit to get to, so we'll hold off on the banter for a little bit and get to it. Dan, what do you know about Attica? If anything.
I've heard of it talked about before. I don't know the details of it. Obviously, I'm about to learn them. But
good.
I remember, what was it in Simpsons? Somebody screamed, Attica! What was that in?
Oh, that's something that's been happening for a long time.
Yeah, I think they did some skit about it in
Yeah.
The Simpsons at some stage, and I didn't quite get it, but I have a better understanding after a very small Google.
First time I ever heard of Attica was actually on WCW Wrestling. They had a bit where cops came in and arrested Kevin Nash, and I can't remember if Scott Hall got arrested as well.
Right.
But as they're walking Kevin Nash out of the ring, he's going, Attica,
Right.
Attica, and I'm like, I don't understand that reference, but I was a little kid and I thought it was funny anyway. So
Oh yeah,
I
of
laughed.
course it. Kevin Nash is cool. Well,
Yeah, no idea what he was talking about until recently, and I don't know if the two equal out, but whatever. Before we get started, we have 3 main references for this series I need to acknowledge. First, the documentary Ghosts of Attica, and the books The Attica Turkey Shoot, Carnage, Cover-Up, and the Pursuit of Justice by Malcolm Bell, and Blood in the Water, the Attica Prison Uprising of 1971 and Its Legacy by Heather Ann Thompson.
well, that's my pop culture reference section done. Thank you, Kevin.
No, there's a lot of pop culture
I know.
you'll be able to grab for this.
I've already made a list.
Shows. Yeah, there's a lot of movies, a lot of documentaries, a lot of references to it. You'll have plenty of stuff.
Yep.
All right. Hydrate real quick, and then we'll get into it. Okay, so
Yeah, I'm having a ginger ale that does not have whiskey in it. I think this is the first time I've had ginger ale with no whiskey in quite a long time.
in his entire life.
Yeah, ever.
Little boy Dan playing Nintendo, and his parents ask, "What are you drinking there, Dan?" "Ginger ale." Wink, wink, wink.
You know that root beer isn't a thing over here. When I was a kid, I assumed that root beer was like a form of beer because it's the only thing we ever associate with the word beer with is alcohol.
Yeah.
So I remember like watching The Simpsons and going on and saying, "Hey, can I have a root beer?" I'm like, "He's a kid. Why is he having beer?" I didn't know for the longest time that root beer was a drink that tastes like fucking medicine. So
I love root beer.
I've had a couple of them. The majority of the ones I've tried taste like medicine. So
yeah,
you know,
if medicine tastes like root beer, I'd probably take more of it.
Mm.
But then I'd have a problem.
Yeah.
Now, root beer is one of those things where you have to get the right one because not all root beers are created equal.
Oh yeah, no, I understand that 100%.
Off-brand
I
root
don't
beers
judge the whole thing. I'd always try something. You know?
Yeah.
So.
I agree. Should always try.
Yeah.
Spread your wings. Unless it's like heroin, then maybe you could just
stick to the one type, you know.
Yeah. Nothing injectable, all right?
Yeah.
Nothing injectable.
Don't branch out too far.
Fuck. We could go on a whole conversation about root beer, but that would be a 3-hour episode on its own. So we're going to just skip over that. All right.
Okay, that's fine. Back to the show. Actually, we've saved the banter for later. Oh, by the way, root beer.
Better for later. Hey, you know what's really good? At 9:46 a.m. Monday, September 13th, 1971, the sound of gunshots rang out over the small village of Attica, New York. Many citizens already glued to their TVs, waiting to hear of any updates on the 4-day standoff at the correctional facility that sits just a mile outside the city limits. Little did anyone know that by 10:05 a.m., just 19 minutes after the first shots were fired, dozens would be dead, and the prison system, if not the entire country, would be changed forever. But to understand why this is important, I just put a word in there that's not even in there, and I don't know why.
First, we must look at the fundamental difference between different types of root beer. That's what we must do to find out why this is important.
Mug versus A&W versus Dog and Suds. But to understand why this happened, we first need to step back a couple years. Specifically, when Richard M. Nixon took the office of the President of the United States, and the war on crime really kicked off. See, crime was seen in the 60s and 70s as priority number one by many Republicans and some Democrats in this country, and the people that broke the law, whether it be violent crime, drug crime, or petty crime, needed to be punished. The 60s and 70s and early 80s were a very dangerous time in this country.
I'm assuming it's because of the impact of Nam, as y'all call it, Vietnam.
It didn't help any.
Yeah, he said not only there's the whole thing of like they're giving out shit about America going over and getting their asses kicked in a foreign land and taking care of business without doing it at home first.
Yeah.
Like, it's my assumption.
Well, and with Vietnam, it was you had the people who didn't want to be there, the people who kind of wanted to be there, and then the people who were like, let's just fucking nuke them and get it over with.
Get some! Dear man in Full Metal Jacket. Get some!
Because let's get something right now. We could have won Vietnam without a problem. It would have just led to World War III, and now everybody would be dead. Because everybody's like, let's just nuke everybody. So, we could have won. We restrained ourselves and ended up getting our asses handed to us in the process. But yeah, no, it was a dangerous time. You know, you had drugs were really on the uptick. and
Creedence Clearwater Revival were the biggest selling band at the time.
Yeah, political
like
unrest, and it was
yeah.
it was a hell of a time. Yeah. Anyway, so along with murderers and rapists, you would also find small-time drug dealers, parole violators, shoplifters, and even one 19-year-old man that cut a hole in the top of a woman's convertible, all shoved into Attica. Yeah. This guy broke parole. He cut a hole in a lady's convertible top, and then he bought her a new one for an apology.
Okay.
And he still goes to Attica.
Attica.
Now, this is also a time of rebellion and radical politics. A younger generation coming up in the midst of the Vietnam War and the Kent State shooting and rampant racially motivated police brutality were swayed to be more political and outspoken, driven by movements from Black Panthers, Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X's New Muslims, the Weather Underground, and all the anti-war protests. This included many in the American prison system. All over the country, prisons were seeing inmates stand up for better treatment, better food, more recreation time, less beatings from guards. Not all the beatings from the guards, because you have to be realistic, but less.
They're not there for a fun time, though.
That's right.
It's not super happy, fun recreation time. That's not what prison means.
Can you stop beating me, please? Yeah. This isn't fun time.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right.
That's it. What did I do to deserve this? Murder? Oh, okay.
Just hit the head a little less.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the problem for some of them is, what did I do to deserve this? Murder. Well, what did I do to deserve this? You stole a car. Well, what did I do to deserve this? You were on parole.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I mean, it was pretty much everybody gets beat.
Look, you have to take the good with the bad here in this people, right? So, like, if you look at it this way, they weren't discriminating against anybody; they were beating everybody equally. You know.
Well, as long as you were Black or Puerto Rican, yeah. Listen, I don't care what your crime was. As long as you're Black or Puerto Rican, I'll beat you. That's kind of the way it was. Maybe if you were white, if you were a
rapist or something.
Word I won't say lover that's another in this series. The N word is used a lot, not by me, by the books and the documentary. I will not be saying the word. We will come up for a way for me to let you know what word I'm talking about. But I think you all know what word I'm talking about. But I will not be saying that word. I have been told. I have been told before that, well, in this context, you can kind of use the words. Like, I don't feel comfortable saying it, so I'm not going to. So
we don't have an N pass, so no.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are not them. I get that. Yeah. So, but food, recreation time, less beatings, things like that. Inmates were becoming less docile and less prone to, quote, serve their own time. They were quicker to claim that their rights were being denied when the system constrained their humanity or willfulness. And they were better organized. With the murder of Black Panther deputy
prisoners unionizing.
Well, that's kind of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of funny when you think about it.
Your local 1055 prisoner union.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like they're doing. And when we get to the negotiation part on the next
don't tell
episode,
them nothing.
You'll see that they actually set up a pretty sophisticated way of sitting down with the people they need to sit down with.
Of course, it is. Nothing strikes fear into the American heart quite like a union, so
yeah.
To unionizing.
With the murder of Black Panther deputy chairman and founder of the Rainbow Coalition, Fred Hampton, the uprising in a number of other prisons across New York, and the riot in Auburn, New York prison that happened much like the Attica uprising, minus all the death. So they get big into it in Blood in the Water. There is a riot in Auburn Prison, which is, on the other side of New York from Attica, but still in New York, where the same thing happens. The prisoners kind of grab a couple hostages, make demands. They figure some stuff out, and they're like, okay, we want amnesty. They give them amnesty, and then right after they give up the hostages and go back to the way everything was, most of the people who had anything to do with it are beaten mercilessly and put in solitary, and
amnesty
they don't
meetings.
live up the commissioner of the correctional offices then doesn't keep his word when it comes to no reprisal and nobody people getting beaten and thrown in solitary. It's a different commissioner than what we'll have here in Attica. So that is kind of it. Everything kind of works on top of one another. They get fucked over in Auburn with a different commissioner, and now with the new Russell Oswald, who we'll talk about here in a little while. He's a much more, I want to say, to your word type of person. He kind of keeps his word. He doesn't like to go back, but they have a hard time trusting him because he is the man. And what happened in Auburn and people getting beat up,
that's understandable.
Yeah. 6 of the main, quote, troublemakers that helped fuel the revolt in Auburn. Yeah, Taylor.
I'm trying to pick her nose. I can't get it. It's backwards. Sorry.
6 of those troublemakers that helped fuel the revolt in Auburn were shipped to Attica, then beaten up and thrown in Z Block, which we'll get to that in a minute. The feeling of change and turmoil was thick in the halls of the iconic New York prison. I mean, it was one of those things where you could walk into the place and really feel that something's not right.
Ooh. Yeah.
Gotcha. You ever walk into a place and be like, I need to leave here?
Yeah. I've look, we all know not everybody knows because so many people assume that Ireland is part of the UK and all that shit, right? But to go beat the old dead horse that it is, I remember being up north here, and I love it up north here. It's a wonderful part of the country. An awful lot of the time, people are wonderful, but Belfast is still completely divided. There's still sections up the north, general, that are completely divided, but Belfast is literally divided, right?
Sure.
And I walked into the wrong pub.
Oh,
so
really?
I knew within literally a second. I was like, no, walk straight back out. Don't open your fucking mouth. Walk straight back out. And it was then I learned how to identify some of the pubs, because some of them have different things on the outside, let's say. So yeah, you kind of learn. But I've had that walked in when nope. You can tell straight away.
There's just that immediate tension in the air, and yeah. Well, but imagine that, but an entire prison filled with it 24 hours a day.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
You know what you do? Don't go to prison, folks.
It helps.
Number one rule of not ending up in a shitty, creepy ass prison: don't go to prison.
Never be. You hear what Dan's saying? Take that advice. Never be taken alive. That's what he's saying to the camera.
Yeah.
Never be taken alive. Do whatever you want. Just don't let him get you. It was more than just when it came to like Auburn and these other prisons. It was more than just, oh, look what happened there. Maybe we should try it so we can get better conditions over here. Conditions at Attica were horrible, even for prisons. So Attica, built in 1931 to house New York's most violent and prolific criminals, one of the last so-called big house prisons built in the United States, New York state officials believed that a modern, secure facility would solve the problem that they were experiencing with the inmates in a wake of a pair of serious riots in state prisons in 1929. Now, the facility included a seemingly impenetrable wall that was 2 feet thick, 30 feet tall and topped with more than a dozen guard towers. And by the time of the riot, and I have riot in quotes because, 40 years later, almost nothing inside the prison had changed, consisting of 5 main housing blocks, A, B, C, D, and E, plus Z block, or the HBZ housing block Z, which was essentially solitary confinement. Each block was supposed to hold up to 250 inmates at a time.
They should have called them A, B, C, D, and 5. Just to really get at people. Fucking hilarious.
That's A, that's dose, that's red. However, many of the prisons in other parts of New York State started to become too full, and many of these prisons decided to send their overflow up to Attica. So by 1971, Attica, which was built to hold around 1,200 inmates, was filled to the brim with over 2,200. So each block now housed around 500 men. Is that the Parthenon?
That's Attica, right there.
That's Attica, Greece.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about today.
It's a different Attica.
All right. I thought they just did to Greece what they did to Australia and just fucked everybody off to some random place. You know, just get out.
Attica, Greece was only built for 1,200 people. We filled it to the brim with 2,200.
Yeah, people literally pouring out the sides of it.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Oh yeah.
Now, this would become difficult for the correctional officers because they were more than willing to bring in as many prisoners as they could physically handle, but they weren't willing to hire the amount of men it would take to control the ever-growing population. A guard, fresh hire off the street, would walk into the job for the first time, be given a stick, a uniform, and a badge, and with no real training, he would be in charge of 60 to 70 men at a time, sometimes escorting up to 120 men to the mess hall, rec area, or to their cells by themselves.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I'm sorry.
1970s. 1970s.
Couldn't give a shit what year it is. Like, the numbers far outweigh, like, how nothing happened. Like,
before that?
Yeah, like, it's just mind-boggling. Like, you know, like, put it this way, look, like, you see it in a movie, let's say, where you'd have one person with a gun and you'd have all these innocent people. There could be 100 of them. There's no way in hell he'd be able to stop them. Like, they'd be able to take his ass out if they wanted. But everybody's afraid because the normal show's so public. I'd be shitting myself if some guy was standing there pointing a gun at me too, right? These are all fucking killers, murderers, the worst of the fucking worst, apparently, is what it was built for initially.
That's what it was built for.
Yeah, and they have a ton of those motherfuckers in there.
They do.
Right? Not everybody's sitting in there saying that this is, like, there's probably a high percentage of people in there that are complete lunatics, and like the people who just have unpaid parking tickets are on the minor end of it, like in the amount. Like, just how the hell nobody did anything? All it take was like 2 or 3 guys really to start it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, correctional officers, the guards who were actually face to face with the prisoners, weren't allowed to carry guns. They had nightsticks. They weren't allowed to carry guns because there's a chance the prisoner could take the gun away. So if something happened, they have to call in, the other the officers from a different part of the prison that would have to go get the guns that they have stored away.
They can't do that if they haven't got any teeth, though. You know, guys, come on, like, why didn't you?
It's true. The fact that they don't have guns at the moment where they're with the prisoners will become an issue in a little while. Luckily, the prisoners can't get the guns if you don't have guns, so there's a plus there. But it will be an issue. Every time I see this type of stuff, I always think of the movie A Bug's Life, where you have a million ants and only a couple hundred grasshoppers, but the grasshoppers rule over the ants, and then the ants are like, wait a minute.
That would have been a good analogy when I said about movies, yeah. That would have been a good one. Very true.
Now, each block had its own exercise yard. These yards were separated by halls that led to the other blocks, and on top of these halls were catwalks that met in the middle of all 4 lots. Just think of one big square divided into 4 smaller squares. That's pretty much all it was. You had A, B, C, and D. E block's kind of on its own, off to the side. And where the halls met was known as Times Square, dead center of the prison. Each block was broken into 12 different groups of 40 to 45 inmates called companies. Now, one guard could be in charge of 2 or 3 companies alone. And all the blocks, except for E, were 3 stories high and divided into 2 wings.
Just imagine walking through Times Square and there's some asshole dressed as Iron Man. Like, taking our photos with him.
Naked cowboy. Yeah. I believe they probably had a naked. I mean, it's prison. They probably had some type of naked cowboy.
He was the one that went around giving all the beatings.
And the cells were exact. Say what?
He was the one going around giving all the beatings. He's a prison guard going around hitting with.
Yeah, but what was he beating him with?
Yeah, it was, obviously his big naked cowboy Mustang of a penis. So
right.
Yep. No reason to beat around the bush here, Kev. He beat them up with his dick. That's what it was.
And the cells were exactly as they were in the 1930s. However, the cells in each block were different. Some had old rust-covered bars, leaving no privacy. Others had thick doors with small slots, leaving some feeling claustrophobic. Some of these blocks had little to no heat, and while others were so hot, it was hard to breathe. And where you were housed also decided where you worked. Some got lucky and worked in the commissary or the administration offices, mostly white inmates, while others had to do the most strenuous labor, like shoveling the snow from the yard in the middle of New York's brutal winter, mostly black and Puerto Rican prisoners. Now, either way, most workers made around 6 cents a day in 1970. That's about 49 cents today.
It's more than I earn,
Super lucky one.
Better in the civil service. Tell you.
The super lucky ones got around $2.90 a day, or $23.51, which was still too little to get by. You can take a wild guess at who got the $2.90 and who got the 6 cents.
Yeah.
Yes. See, all the state offered each inmate free of charge, which I'm pretty sure they were like, look at all this stuff we give them for free.
Yeah. 3 hots
well,
and a cot.
Free. For those of you who have never been to prison or jail, here's the thing that
or watch Shawshank Redemption, or
yeah, all that shit that they give you, quote unquote, for free, all your room and board, that's not free. You have to pay for that after you get out. You still have, and there's a big thing about, well, let's give criminals, felons, their rights to vote back after they serve their time. A lot of places are saying, okay, after they've served their time and they've paid what they have to pay. For many people, that will never happen because they owe tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to the judicial system.
Or you end up back in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's
because they can't afford to pay.
That's right. It's a never-ending cycle. So it's not free, I hate to tell you.
Yeah.
Now, what they got, quote-unquote, free of charge was one thin gray coat, 2 gray work shirts, 3 pairs of gray pants, 1 pair of shoes, 3 pairs of underwear, 6 pairs of socks, and a comb.
So they have more clothes than I have. And they got them all for free. And they are all nearly in the same colour as my clothes also.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you just have them all hanging up. Like, what am I going to wear today? No. Gray.
Yeah, I've ever seen that in Archer. His turtleneck.
Oh, the turtleneck.
Yeah. It says black or black.
And once a month, they got 1 bar of soap and 1 roll of toilet paper. Now, these were the old rolls. For our younger listeners, Sam, rolls of TP weren't always the size of cantaloupes like they are now. You see the fucking roll of toilet paper is this fucking big. It's like a baby's head.
Well, yeah, but yeah, the industrial ones you get in public toilets and all that shit. Yeah. The
Oh,
ones you
yeah.
just buy here
Yeah.
aren't like that. Excuse me.
No.
The ginger ale repeating on me. Yeah, the ones here are normal size, and even the thoughts of just one of those for a month scares me. The thoughts of one of those for a week scares me. The thoughts of one of those for 3 days with prison food scares the living shit out of me too. So,
is that gruel coming in or gruel coming out?
yeah.
Back in the day, as they say, they used to actually the toilet paper used to actually fit onto a toilet paper holder. None of the toilet paper over here actually fits onto a standard toilet paper holder.
Oh, really?
Ours
would. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of like Charmin has to come with extenders.
Oh, right.
You get.
When
Where
just
we have a.
Why just change the standard size of the toilet roll dispenser?
The toilet paper? No,
of the
it's too
dispenser roller holder itself. Like
it's a selling point. Buy this thing of Charmin. It's 6 rolls of toilet paper, but it's worth 32, and we give you an extra extender for your toilet paper holder. It sits like this far. Sits like 6 inches off the toilet paper holder. Fucking things are.
It's like a fucking broom handle sitting there. The fucking thing sticking out. Like.
They're fucking gigantic.
Well, everything has to be bigger over there, I suppose, doesn't it?
That's right. God damn it. So
it's freedom.
1 roll a month in prison actually equaled out to about 1 square a day. Yeah,
Jesus.
that's not gonna do. So you got a lot of crusty asses walking around. A lot of mud butts, as they say. Now the food situation. The food situation was no better. With a budget of less than 70 cents per prisoner per day, the prison almost never met the federal nutritional requirements, leaving most inmates to go to bed hungry. When I read that, it was like 70 cents per prisoner per day, but this B-list celebrity tells me at like 11 o'clock at night on my TV that only a nickel a day can feed this starving child over in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So 70 cents a day should be fine.
It's true. They're ripping us off, the bastards.
Then I realized that all those children over there are starving, even when I give them money. 5 cents a day, it's not enough. Fuck. Inmates were allowed 1 shower a week and given 2 buckets of water a day that had to be used to wash their underwear and their socks, brush their teeth, shave, and clean their entire cell to the standards of the guards.
Maybe not in that order, but, washing your underwear. Damn it, I forgot to brush my teeth.
First, wash your underwear and your socks, then brush your teeth. First things first.
Shave, then brush your teeth. Don't forget to use it to wash your ass because you have that little tiny piece of toilet paper sitting there.
I would imagine that a lot of people probably would just kind of palm the water and plop back there. Gotta get rid of it all. Yeah. So if you wanted anything else, like deodorant, toothpaste, you didn't get that type of shit. You didn't get deodorant or toothpaste or anything like that. You had to buy it.
Commissary.
So if you wanted it, yeah, warmer clothes, better food, even pen and paper, you had to get it at the commissary. And they wouldn't get much help from family. You're thinking, well, you just have family put money on your commissary, on your account for your commissary. Most of these inmates came from low-income areas, and their loved ones couldn't afford to even visit them. I'm not going to get into all the logistics of what you would have to go through to visit somebody there. It would require a bus trip and then a taxi and all this. But it could cost over $100 in travel expenses just to get there, plus an entire day off work for the visit, which, according to the inflation calendar on Google, would be a little over $800 today. It's a lot of money just to
That's
go
a lot of toilet
visit.
paper.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Oh my god, I just found a size comparison.
To our toilet paper and your toilet paper? Yeah, pretty ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can get it up here. For anybody, if I can't, then I'll send you the picture, because sure. I think it's worth having a look.
Well, you go on with that. And even if that, yeah.
You can't even
China.
see the full
What's going on in China?
They're only tiny, sure.
Yeah, I know, but with all that, all the fucking sauces and shit, you gotta think that's gotta be a mess. But yeah.
You never know.
Well, well, that's not right. And the China toilet roll, that's probably closer to what you would get in prison. Just an itty-bitty one. Now, even if the families could make it, between a quarter and a third of all minority prisons were in common law relationships, and common law partners weren't allowed to visit, and neither were the children of common law relationships. Even the letters to common law partners were destroyed. So you were either married, it was either parents or your actual spouse. If it was a girlfriend that just lived with you, that's not going to fly. They don't get to come visit you.
That's ridiculous.
Yep. Now,
well, sure, look, you're in prison, motherfuckers. Shouldn't have broken the fucking law. Then you get to spend time, with your loved ones.
Again, don't let them take you alive. Prisoners would be confined 14 to 24 hours a day to their cells. These tiny cells had a bed, a toilet, and a basin. And many inmates got only around 30 to 90 minutes a day of rec time. Problem was, the rec area was outside. New York summers are sweltering, and the late fall, winter, and early spring could be brutal, leaving only a few months through the year where you could actually enjoy the outdoors. Now, they had very few books and magazines to read, nothing in Spanish for their fairly large Puerto Rican population, and just as an extra kick to the nuts, the magazines the inmates could read were things like Outdoor Life, Field and Stream, and American Home.
I see what you did there.
It's just you fucking asshole.
Yeah.
It'd be like filling up a monastery with nothing but Playboy. Is
yeah.
The one thing you're not allowed to do.
Today's episode is brought to you by podup.com.
Let's be honest, whether you want to admit it or not, you've probably thought at some point to start a podcast. Podcasts are fun. Podcasts are fun. You and I have a good time on here, Dan.
Just get on, talk junk.
Yeah. I mean, it's some dark content. What we're talking about isn't necessarily fun, but we make it fun. We have a good time, and we would never even met each other if it wasn't for podcasts. So
that's true. Podcasts and Canadians.
You can podcasts and Canadians. Little D&D threw it in there. I mean, change your life.
Well, there are about 5 million podcasts out there, and around 90% of those stop after just 3 episodes. That's including about 1.8 million that stop before they even start, which we know a thing or two about that, now, to be fair.
Yeah, we do, unfortunately.
Yeah. Quite a few still on the drawing room floor. So.
Yeah. And of those that do get started and past that 3 episode mark, about 90% of those don't get past 20 episodes. And there's a reason. Podcasting is hard. Well, successful podcasting is hard.
Yeah, it's not just sitting in front of a microphone and talking for an hour, even though sometimes that's what it is for me. It's recording, audio editing, video editing, social media, promotion, blah, 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 all the stuff that Kevin does.
And I do. And finding and paying for all that software to use can be just as big of a headache, not to mention expensive.
Well, with PodUp, you can have a one-stop shop for everything you need to take your podcast to the next level.
With 35 powerful modules with AI integration and one software, you can create, publish, grow, monetize, and manage your podcast with a simple, easy-to-use interface.
Everything from a site builder and recorder to editing for video and audio, live streams, blogs, and transcriptions.
Legal, newsletters, SEO,
setting up shops, getting ads and sponsorships,
managing your workflow, files, and even backing up your content.
Set up an account today and get 14 days free. And even schedule a demo with one of PodUp's podcasting experts to see how to start producing and monetizing your very own podcast.
And when you're ready, use our exclusive coupon code TORTURE15 for 15% off whichever package you decide to go with.
And if you're a professional that's even too busy for that, go to podallies.com.
Yeah, their done-for-you podcast production and marketing service will take care of the dirty work for you.
Dirty. We're talking websites, social media, editing work, SEO, all done for you. So you can just focus on being the star of the show, like me, and getting on with your day, unlike Kevin, who has to do all the work.
That's why everybody comes is for Dan. And this team of experts will use PodUp software to put your podcast on the map where it belongs. See, they're using PodUp software. It's all one big circle. It's always coming back around.
Like opposite of a square.
That's right.
There you go. So, go to podup.com and podallies.com and use our coupon TORTURE15 for 15% off. That's TORTURE15 for 15% off.
Podup.com, the ultimate podcasting platform. And if you wanted anything else, your family would have to send it to you. Unfortunately, the guards would confiscate anything they deemed inappropriate and would outright throw away anything not written in English. In fact, almost all reading material requested by any non-white prisoner would be denied, tossed out. So
that's just a bit ridiculous, you know. Even if it was like field and streams and shit like that, you know.
Well, if it was a newer issue, then the guards would probably keep it for themselves and hand it out like an old time doctor, where they have the magazines that are like 9 months old.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You'd get it 9 or 10 months later with a bunch of stuff crossed out and.
Yeah, I always loved that. I remember going to a doctor's office before and they had copies of, Top Gear. Don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had the actual magazine for Top Gear. And I had it sitting there and I opened it up and it was like, the new Nissan GTR, blah, blah, blah. The car had been out like 5 years at this stage. Like, you know, it's like, how fucking old is this? I got excited when I saw the headline for it. I was like, it's a new GTR.
It's like that scene from Dumb and Dumber. It's like, we landed on the moon. Yeah. Everybody getting their information way too late. There were a number of ridiculous rules the inmates had to abide by as well, like no speaking in their cells after 8 p.m. and no talking on the way to the mess hall. Break the rules, and you could be put under what is known as key block, or locked away in your cell for 24 hours a day for an undetermined amount of days. They just throw you in your cell. They bring you your food there. You don't do anything. You don't go to mess. You don't go to rec. You do nothing. You just sit in your cell. The stuff's brought to you, and you just sit there.
Doesn't sound to be the worst sometimes, depending on what's happening. You know.
Yeah, but I think that because there's a small cramped cell, there's you don't have a TV.
Yeah.
You don't have. You have nothing to do. You live like prisons now. If I was stuck in my cell for 24 hours a day, as long as I have a TV or something, I think I'd be okay. But they have nothing. And some guards would enforce the rules, and some didn't, making for inconsistent living situation, which can be,
Sounds like parenting.
Sometimes, yep. I can get away with this with mom, but I can't with dad. Or I can get away with this with dad, and I can't with mom. Yeah.
Can't get away with anything with me.
Except we're not allowed to beat you with nightsticks. Yeah. So
unless you're white,
apparently, frustrating for us than for you. Now, the health of the inmates was also a source of frustration. They were forced to work when ill. One man suffering from polio was in so much pain he physically couldn't work, so the guards put him under key block for an entire month. Excuse me, sir, but my legs are swelled up to the size of tree trunks. I can't walk. Lock him away for good.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Beat him for good measure.
Everybody said not to go to prison. Nobody told me not to get polio.
Take away his copies of Farmer's Annual Weekly.
You have any highlights? I want to do the little picture find in the back. No highlights. Oh, we have highlights, but all the pictures are already found. Oh, fucking torture. Now, the prison itself only had 2 doctors, Dr. Selden T. Williams and Dr. Paul G. Sternberg. These 2 men are pieces of human shit. And they are the only 2 doctors for the entire 2,200-person population. Seeing upwards of 120 prisoners a day, they were far from sympathetic to their plight. Inmates explaining their problems through a mesh screen, most not even receiving an actual physical examination, and many leaving the doctor's office with nothing more than an aspirin. Inmates with more chronic issues usually went untreated. Prisoners like Frank Big Black Smith, who will become very important later on, suffered from major... Anybody named Big Black is going to be important further down. If you went out of your way to say their nickname, they're going to be important later on.
So yeah, what's that word again? It's I'm always saying about movies, when they bring something up that's going to be important later on.
Yes, they go out of their way to mention something. You're like, it's going to be...
Hey, look at that hook over there. That's going to be important later. Yeah, that's sort. Yeah.
I watched a movie last night that did it pretty well. You kind of had an idea, because this lady goes into a barn, and there's another lady on the phone who's explaining to her what's in the barn, and she's like, I see some hay bales, I see some of this, some of that. There's some chemicals over there. There's this or that, and they kind of skip over it real quick. And then the chemicals come into play later. And it's like, oh, okay. So they did a pretty good job on it. That movie. It was actually a really good movie. We'll talk about it later. We don't have time right now. God damn it.
Foreshadowing.
I'm rambling. Huh?
Foreshadowing, yes. But it was done pretty well. But yeah, anytime you use a nickname like Big Black, it's like, oh yeah, this is a guy Big Black. He'll be used again later. He's ironically a
Big
skinny
Black,
white guy.
Big Black had major dental problems. And during his short time in Attica, he would lose almost all of his teeth because they refused to refer him to a dentist. Neither of these doctors could speak Spanish and would never ask for interpreters for the Puerto Rican prisoners. And heaven help you if you were confined to Z Block. One person in solitary had multiple broken bones in his hands and begged Dr. Sternberg for pain meds. The doctor simply told him to write a letter to another doctor. It's like, I can't because my hand's broken. Yeah. And even after the death of an inmate in Dr. Williams' care, nothing would change, and there would be no repercussions. There's even civilians that kind of civilian employees that band together. Like, we need to get these guys proper medical care, threaten to sue, threaten to put malpractice suits on them, threaten to bring in their own doctors, and the prison's like, yeah, you're not going to do any of that. You can't do any of that. You're going to have to deal with what's going on. Fuck it. And there was experimental testing.
Fair play to them, though. Sorry.
Yeah, they tried.
Sooty, put that away. Put that away, Sooty. Nobody wants to see that.
Nobody wants to see your big butthole up on Dan's shoulder.
Chocolate
like Bob
starfish.
Burger's episode where it's paintings of nothing but animal bodies. Now, there's experimental testing on the inmates. A handful of volunteers, desperate for money, decided to let doctors infect them with the virus in order to test the immune system. We actually will have a couple episodes or series down the road of prison human experimentation. And
sorry, do you want zombies, people? Because that's how you get zombies. Okay, just saying. Oh, yes, I'll let you
Have you never watched a movie?
But it was the 70s or some shit. There wasn't really that many movies.
71. So,
Had George A. Romero made his classic zombie hit at that stage? I believe so.
Don't remember. But then again, the zombies in that one were pretty...
78.
Yeah. So...
That was a day to day.
They didn't know. They were ignorant to the situation.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they hadn't got to see Day of the Dead yet, so...
Yeah. Now, forget about getting on parole. The parole board would meet at the prison once a month, and some men would get it, and some wouldn't. It didn't seem to be any real rhyme or reason to it. I could probably guess one thing that would change is there was probably a color of one person that was getting hit more than another.
Yep, definitely.
But see, just because you were given parole didn't mean you got to leave. Which is kind of the whole purpose of parole. You got parole, you get to leave prison.
Get to hang around Times Square for a while.
Yeah, not in the 70s. The requirement set to be able to leave the prison on parole that you had to have ample employment set up before you left. Yes, the confusion on your face, Dan, is warranted.
I gotta go to a big city. I must have a job.
In order to get a job, the prison would supply the inmate with an outdated phone book so they could write to the businesses they were seeking employment with. However, inmates also had to pay for the paper and the postage for these letters. So you could be on parole for months before you ever actually got to leave the prison. And don't think it's, I get parole for this long or whatever. And no, all that stuff is included.
Right.
It's not, yeah. So it's here. It's you have to have housing. You have to have a place to go. So you can either go live with family, or depending on what you did, you can go to a halfway house. And then working with the parole officer or working with the counselor, you will find work within however many days or weeks or whatever they allow you. Yeah, no. It's like, I got on parole. Awesome. Do you have a job? No, I've been in prison for like 5 years. I'm pretty sure I'm fired from my old job.
Yeah. Like, it's ridiculous. Sorry, I had to throw toilet roll at Sooty there because he's on top of my guitar. It's about to fall over. I can see my one expensive one sitting there kind of going, Sooty,
shit.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Get down. Come on. Get down. The only thing that was in any way soft, but normally you kind of throw a cushion down near him at his feet and it frightens him and he run away. So it's like, if you throw toilet roll down there, he might run away. And he just sat there and he threw it down the corner and he just sat there and he just went. And that was it. He just looked at it and looked back at me and then I was like, okay, dickhead.
Now, on July 29th, 1970, prisoners working in the metal shop refused to work anymore until their wages were raised. They sent a delegation to speak to the supervisor, and they were subsequently put under key block. The prisoners called for a complete strike. Thing is, it worked. Once all the metal shop workers refused to work and had their wages, they had their wages raised from 6 cents to 25 cents. I know it's not a huge victory, but it's a victory. You know, that might be a bar of deodorant. Who knows?
So work out the percentage increase on that. That's what I'm calling a strike right now. Let's go.
They said they'll give us 25 cents. Oh, man, for inflation and in order to get those, man, we got to have at least 36.
Yeah. It's like, I only have 2 squares of toilet paper left, people.
It's prison. You get what you get. You can't look a gift horse in the mouth. The superintendent, Vincent Mancusi, a villain in this story, then decided that the prisoners that were, quote, troublemakers, again, were kept under key block. The prisoners that were kept under key block would then be sent to Z block. He, like many, saw the activist inmates needed to be watched carefully and silenced if possible. with a good nightstick to the teeth. Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
And that's why Big Black didn't have any teeth left.
That might have contributed to it. Now, the only reason things didn't blow up long before it did was that the prisoners just did what they were told. They policed each other. It was, hey, that's against the rules. Don't do that, because they knew something eventually was going to pop off too. But as the population got bigger and the average age of the inmate got younger and more vocal, tensions seemed to get higher. You had this new, what they like to say, new type of prisoner who was young, politically motivated, not willing to sit back and just take whatever the prison system wanted to give them, but stand up for themselves. It's like when you have a child and they won't just fucking listen and they want to talk back all the time. Yes, we're both like, what's that like? And then you have all these older prisoners, a different generation, kind of listening, being maybe like, maybe these kids are right. Maybe we shouldn't. Yeah. And that's what you'll find later on, is that all of the younger prisoners are the ones standing up and saying, this isn't right. It's not just going to be an all-out riot, everybody killing one another. It's going to be organized, and it's going to be, there's going to be discussions, and there's going to be little elections, and that's because of these younger prisoners that had come in trying to change the system. And they are being motivated by, again, Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. Keep putting those two together. Elijah Muhammad's kind of a piece of shit. Sorry. Don't come after me like you did Malcolm X. But I know if the same thing happened to me that happened to Malcolm X, which was Elijah Muhammad's fault. The Black Panthers, the Weather Underground, all these different factions, younger people coming up in America, being more, political.
Yeah, like that group of Snowpiercer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like the movie. I haven't seen the TV show.
Brilliant.
It's
better than the movie.
Is it?
Yeah, and here's the problem, though, is that the last series is made, filmed, completed, the whole shebang, but the channel dropped them and they're looking for somebody to pick it up to actually release it. But nobody's picking it up right now.
Is there a different Snowpiercer there than there is here? Because the last season of Snowpiercer is actually on TV here.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, over here it's like we were watching it on like Netflix or some shit, and we're waiting. Maybe it has changed since then. I must look it up. I think it was.
I believe it's on TNT here. If I have to remember, right. Turner Network Television. Anyway, no banter.
Right.
Bad Kevin. Bad Kevin. Now, a couple months before all hell broke loose, the guards and many of the inmates were getting more and more worried about not if, but when the shit would finally hit the fan. And with the release of the Auburn 6 from Z-Block after half a year in solitary, many prisoners became even more vocal and combative with the correctional officers. You see, a lot of the people that will have to do with the Attica uprising and changing things there first came with this Auburn 6. Right. They the quote-unquote troublemakers. They'll bring the change with them. Prison guards would bring up the tension and problems of overcrowding and understaffing to the higher-ups, who did nothing to remedy the situation. Like, we don't have... Yeah, shock and awe. The people with all the
this whole story writes itself, Kevin.
And they do. They bring it up quite often to them. It's like, there's a lot of stuff. We need more guards. We need more training. We need better ways for protection. There's a lot of guards.
It's nearly like stereotypes of these things actually have an origin.
Yeah.
Of action. That's me trying to be funny about it, but it's just fucking true though. It's a stereotype and a trope in anything that you ever watch or see, or anything fictional, be it or truth or partly truthful about prison system stuff or anything.
Right.
You always see shit like that, because don't know what it was, especially back then. Well, I can understand there was a massive recession back then, though, as well. Though, wasn't there? Like, it was back. There was like the fuel crisis and all that back in the 70s.
Yeah, it wasn't a great time in American history.
It was a great time in Irish history, though. We were doing nothing but cutting turf, drinking whiskey, sitting back, chilling out, enjoying our freedom.
Yeah,
it's great, as far as I know.
Awesome. As far as I'm there yet. Yeah, think the guards from the Shawshank Redemption, except there's only half of them. Pretty much, they're just as brutal, but they have much less,
right?
The amount. But yeah, I mean, they didn't want to spend the money. They said over and over that they didn't have the money to spend, which I don't believe at all. At one point in one of the books, it says that New York State each year made like $1.7 million off of the prison through the stuff that they sold or whatever. They actually made a substantial amount of money off of this prison.
Yeah,
and
they're trying to make money, though. They're.
But you got to spend. You got to take. They are human beings. You do have to take care of them, whether prisoner or not. They still have to be treated like humans.
Some of them do.
But, I guess it depends on what you go for.
Yeah.
But
there's certain things that you get locked up for. That, as far as I'm concerned, my own personal political opinion being, that certain things you do. No.
No.
Does it stretch too far?
But see, but if you see some of the prisoners that are on like TikTok or something who have been out for a while, or they go on podcasts and they do interviews about what life was like, the prisons should be treating everybody as equally as possible. It's the prisoners that go out of the way. They will hand down the judgment they feel. Like if you're a child predator, the prison needs to do for you what it does for all the other prisoners. However, the prisoners themselves, if you come in as a child predator, you aren't going to have a good time. It's like that South Park meme. If you come into prison and you're a child predator, you're not going to have a good time. I saw one guy say that him and a couple buddies went into this one pedo's cell, and like they took a shivved him with the shank and shanked him with the shiv, cut around his face, like the side of his face, dug his fingers underneath and started to skin his fucking face. So prisons just need to make sure that they do the exact same thing for everybody else. Go in there for something like that, other prisoners get a hold of you, maybe you should have kept your hands off the children.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Yeah, that's just the way we feel about it. Now, July 1971, a group of 5 prisoners calling themselves the Attica Liberation Faction sent a list of reforms that needed to be made. To the Commissioner of Corrections, Russell Oswald. Dan seems to get a good big kick out of Attica Liberation Faction.
That's Alf.
Fucking hell, I didn't even think of it.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were getting at. It fucking Alf in the background.
No, that's not what I was doing.
Here, Alf is back in prison form.
Holy fuck. That was not planned. Much like a lot of things I do. Completely unplanned. You might think I have it planned, but I'm not that fucking organized. And for those of you who are listening now, watching, my background is Alf.
Yep.
Dan put it together before I did, and I'm the one who wrote the fucking thing. Talk about foreshadowing.
Yeah,
I didn't even see that one coming. Christ. Anyway, Russell Oswald. I'm not going to go as far as saying that Russell Oswald is a good guy in all this. He eventually does also throw up his hands and say it is what it is. He has his bad moments, especially after it's all over with the cover up and everything. But he does really try to get things done the right way. I do truly believe that he had the best of intentions for everyone involved, and if he had been given the time, could have gone a long way into solving many of the problems in Attica if they would have given him the time. Both sides, the inmates and his higher-ups that he had to answer to in public opinion. If everybody would have just said, let's give him more time, let's figure it out, I think he could have. But what we'll see in the next episode, by the time negotiations had finally broken down and one death came that kind of fucked it all up, he didn't have a whole lot of choice but to just say, okay, well, I guess we're done here. Now, these five, as we'll call them the Attica Five, send Oswald, or I guess we could call him Alf. I guess we'll just call him Alf. When Alf send Oswald their list of 28. I don't know why I know. I have 28 and then Reformation, and I saw the 4, and I immediately said 24, because, again, we're illiterate.
He had 28, and he thought it was 8 divided by 2, which is next to it, which made up to 2 to 28, and he divided it, and then you put the 2 back in place again, and ended up with 24.
That's too much math. I didn't do any of that. That's too much math for me. It's just simple as I don't know how to read. They put together their list of 28 Reformation demands, including parole reform, religious freedom, improvement in working and living conditions, and a change in the medical process and staff. They also had something in there which they will continue to have until close to their last set of demands, which was to be sent to a third world country if they wanted to be.
Because everybody's sending over all that money. You see, that's what it is.
Yeah. Now, the 5 men, Herbert Blyden, Frank Lott, Donald Noble, Carl Jonesell, and Peter Butler, reminded Oswald that they were not striking or revolting, and that they were trying to do everything democratically, which is how it is generally how it starts and goes through most of the time. They try to do things democratically. Now, eventually they do it with hostages, but they still try to negotiate and figure some things out.
Hey, here's some democracy. Bam!
Listen, all I want is just these things. I'll do it democratically. If you don't give it to me, going to stab this guy in the throat. But otherwise, trying to do it democratically, we'll take a vote.
Democracy in the form of a shiv.
That's right. Now, some of the administration in prison, including Superintendent Mancusi, decide to come down even harder on the inmates for speaking out. But Oswald decides to speak to Governor Nelson Rockefeller, one of the bad guys of the story. Of course, a Rockefeller is going to be a bad guy. About
James
investigating...
Jacuzzi, whatever the fuck's name was there, was going to be the bad guy, but... All right.
Oh, no, he's a bad guy, too.
Yeah,
There's
fuck you,
multiple
James
bad guys. By the end of, well, maybe the middle of the next episode, there's going to be hundreds of bad guys who are just doing horrible things. So we can't name them all. He spoke to Governor Nelson Rockefeller about investigating all demands with a view toward responsive action where possible and beneficial. So in early July, Oswald told the inmates that he would take serious consideration into all of the demands on the list. Then over a month went by with no word. They're like, so how you coming on that list? And he's just, They eventually do start going back and forth with letters, Oswald and Alf.
So I have raised this with my manager. Next day, I will check it with them for an update. Classic
I have
civil
moved it
servant.
up the ladder.
Classic civil servant.
Now they tell him, like, we're still waiting to see changes. So far, and he's like, well, I've made a bunch of changes. And I say, well, the only changes we've seen is that you now we have our own water pitchers on the table. We don't have to get up and ask for water. We have pitchers of water. That's it. Mancusi's still censoring the reading material, which was deemed illegal by the courts a time before that. And Oswald just tells him, well, change takes a while, but we're working on it.
We want copies of Proud Housewife. Come on. The Espanol.
He's like, complete change doesn't come overnight. And they're saying, well, yeah, but letting us have an extra shower a week or getting a little bit better food or stuff like that.
They should have responded with something
that
like your wife
doesn't take
came
complete
overnight.
change.
That would have put him in his place, something snappy like that.
Yeah.
Change the
that doesn't
overnight, but your wife did.
But not everything needed to be complete change. He could have done, and I can't blame Oswald too much for things not getting done immediately. He only has so much power to do stuff. But things like let him have an extra shower a week. Stop censoring their reading material. Let them have better magazines. Let them have some books. Make
personalized prison onesies.
Yeah.
It's
this
like, sorry,
isn't embroidered.
we ran out of material making big blacks. It's just, he's too big and scary. We couldn't get his measurements.
But there were, get better doctors in there. There were things he could have done, and they could have done to make life better, to keep all this from happening in the first place. And they didn't. So
you can start with not beating the shit out of people.
That helps.
That
helps.
It's an easy change.
Like, I can't give you anything except for a pitcher of water. Can you tell them to stop beating us? What the fuck did I just say?
You chose pitchers. You stick with pitchers, motherfucker.
You get pitchers of water or you get nothing.
Yeah. Now, do you want no pitchers and beatings or pitchers and beatings? Which fucking one do you want?
Take your pick. One or the other. One of them's going to happen. I leave it up to you. Now, then we come to mid-August. It's hot. It's humid. You have around 2,200 men only showering once a week, many of them with no deodorant. This odor just hovering over the prison, helping to build that tension. Then on top of that, the correctional officers are starting to notice that many of the factions were starting to talk to one another, coming together. This scared the ever-living shit out of the COs.
Oh, so typically, you'd obviously have, the white lads all off one way, the Hispanic people, and then on the black people off one side. And I guess they're all coming together now to...
Now they're speaking to one another.
Yeah.
People who would fight normally, now they're figuring stuff out. And that, I would imagine, is fucking terrifying.
Oh, yeah. That's half what keeps the whole place in order, is the fact that, one third hates another third, hates another third, they all hate each other.
Yeah.
For no reason other than the fact that they're in prison, but,
color of their skin and,
whatever.
Now, August 22nd, the news of author and activist George Jackson in San Quentin being murdered in a quote-unquote escape attempt, which is questionable. I don't get too much into it. The stories that he hid a gun in his wig, it's kind of ridiculous. But the inmates decide to band together. George Jackson, one of the most prolific and famous prisoners in the prison system at that time. Everybody knows what he looks like. And you're telling me that he's going around prison with a giant wig on, the gun underneath, and nobody realizes it? He gets in a shoot up.
Pulls out an AR-15, like, oh,
yeah.
What's his name again?
It's like George Jackson is in San Quentin. And it reminds me of Johnny Dangerously with Michael Keaton. He's walking cell to cell, grabbing all the pieces to make up a gun. Have you ever seen Johnny Dangerously?
No.
Oh my God! Watch Johnny Dangerously. It is one of the best movies ever that nobody's watched. So many people have not watched it.
Maybe I've seen it, I don't know.
It's so good. My grandmother kicked me in the balls once. It's so fucking good. Driving down the road, trying to get away from the cops, and I can't remember what her name was. It was the lady from Taxi. She's hanging out the window, peeling wallpaper off the side of the car to change what the car looks like over and over and over again. It's so fucking goddamn. It's a Michael Keaton comedy. It's so good.
I love
but he's in prison and they're walking him to the electrocution chair. And at each prison he stops by, he says goodbye to another inmate, and they hand him another part of a gun.
All right.
Another part, and he puts it all together, and he holds the guy up, and he tosses him the gun, and it all falls apart because the whole thing's made out of soap.
Yeah.
It's God damn it! I haven't seen that movie in forever. Watch Johnny Danger. Watch Johnny Dangerously.
I will. I'll have to look it up.
Anyway, getting off the rant. So the inmates decide to band together because of this murder of an activist who many of them look up to, because he was in prison and he was telling everybody about his time in prison and what people need to do to change prison. So they wore black armbands and lined up in 2 lines all together, got their trays in the mess hall, and nobody got any food. And then they went and sat down in a sign of solidarity with George Jackson. And this, again, scared the correctional officers even more that something was about to happen. In the Ghosts of Attica documentary, former guard G.B. Smith tells, quote, "They walked in the mess hall, went right by the food, and sat down. They took their trays and sat down. Dead silence. They had it organized that nobody eats today, so nobody ate." And this might be the most telling part of the documentary, and I actually have it on my phone. I forgot to load it up on the computer, so I will send it to you later so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. This man takes one of the hardest swallows I've ever seen after he says that. Like cartoonishly hard.
Is it like Sam from Supernatural swallows that he does when he's angry?
Yeah. He said, he's like, and so nobody ate.
Yeah, it's a Sam swallow. That's a Sam swallow.
It was... It's the very first thing when I was watching this documentary, it shot out to me like that. I was like, holy fuck, he is still scared of it. I mean, maybe not now. The documentary was made in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think
that still lives with him, though. That thing, yeah, it still sticks in his memory. Like, you imagine, like...
Oh, yeah.
Again, how badly outnumbered they were. Stuff like,
Yeah, it was.
I'm sure for them, that's probably the thing that signifies the beginning of a lot.
Yeah.
As well, you know.
And you could see...
Calm down. Jesus, he's fucking shit up, people.
You could see it in his face. Just like how scared he was then.
Yeah.
And not even all the inmates knew what was going on. Like Frank Big Black Smith had to be told that they were not eating that day. He says in the documentary, quote, "Everybody was quiet and nobody didn't eat. And I'm asking, what's going on? And somebody told me this black dude out in California, so-and-so, and he got killed and it was a shootout with a judge and all that. And ain't nobody talking. Like, be quiet, black. And I wanted to eat some breakfast. Shit. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to do because I didn't know. But then I see there's unusual activity jumping off here now. It looked something was going to happen here." The documentary is really well done, and Big Black is fucking fantastic. He ends up, I don't know if they're married or they just dated or what, but there's a lawyer named Liz. I want to say Liz Frank was her last name, but she started volunteering at this law office that was trying to help the prisoners of Attica after everything comes down and the people are, they're going to get more time and all this shit. And Big Black ends up going there and volunteering too. And he's like, "Oh, I saw her and I immediately noticed her and I liked her because, she was driven and she was, she knew what she was talking about." And she goes, "You liked me because I was fat." He's like, "Oh yeah, I like you because you were fat." Yeah. Big fat black man and big fat black lady, and they just love each other because they're both big and fat. It's fucking great. It's fucking great. He's like, "Man, man, then they never let her talk." I was like, "Hey, let that fat white lady talk once in a while." It's
look this guy
fucking
up.
great.
Literally,
It's great.
Big black.
If you get a chance, it's on the service Tubi, Tubi. I don't know if you get that over there or not, but anybody's listening, it's on Tubi. Ghosts of Attica. It's a very well done.
He has a book.
He had a graphic novel come out, yeah. And I tried to get a hold of it, and it was expensive. There's a place you could read it for free, but I was like, nah. So now at this point, the guards are so terrified that something is going to pop off that they start making plans for their family to be taken care of financially if something was to happen to them. And they start leaving their wallets at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
In case you get mugged in prison.
Pretty
so
much.
they can't get their addresses from their licenses and shit like that.
They didn't want them to get all their money. They didn't want them to get their license in case they escaped. Any credit cards weren't really a thing then, but they didn't want them getting hold of any of their stuff. So they just started leaving their wallets at home. But at that time, the inmates still wanted to get everything done democratically. They thought the best way to get change was through talking with Oswald and Rockefeller and without anybody getting hurt. So Oswald lets them know that he will be stopping by to talk to all the inmates within the next week. Hopes are high that this will bring a real dialogue between the two factions and change will begin to happen. So September 2nd, Oswald goes to the prison and meets with some of the members of ALF. It still fucking kills me. He's supposed to speak to the entire population a couple blocks at a time. How they had it set up was that is one thing that the prisons had is each cell kind of had this like little radio with headphones so people could listen to. It only got 3 stations.
Right.
All of them were super staticky, so they couldn't hear like really anything that was going on. But they would address
they all
everybody.
Neil Diamond.
They would address all the inmates through these radios. They would broadcast to the radios. So the plan was to talk to the guys from ALF, and then a couple cell blocks at a time, speak over the radio to these people live so they could hear what he had to say.
Yeah.
However, he claims that his wife had to be taken to the hospital for some unknown reason, and he leaves them with nothing more than a pre-recorded message. Just like, oh, the commissioner has a tape he wants us to play for, or an 8-track he wants us to play for you. Telling them that he hears what they're saying and that he's working on it. Now, for some, this is good enough.
I have your idea in a filing cabinet.
Some inmates think that now maybe he's doing what he's supposed to do, and some will even go as far as to write a letter thanking him for showing up at all and wishing his wife a speedy recovery. But the vast majority of inmates are pissed. It says in one of the books, it says in one of the books that you could hear people throwing their headphones against the wall and screaming that it's a cop-out and that he doesn't care, that he's not going to do anything, just raising tensions even more. It almost would have been better if he would have said, hey, I have an emergency at home. I will come back in a few days, rather than leaving a pre-recorded.
That just tells you that he didn't want to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
and
Big Black is still
sitting
there not having a fucking clue what's going on. He came walking out, didn't know what's happening. He said, hey, I just walked out here. People are talking about listening to some shit. I don't know what's happening. Some guy's on the radio. Fuck that shit. Sits back down.
After this, the administration clamps down even harder on the inmates. It seems it's a common theme that every time they talk to Oswald or Oswald talks to us, and it seems like he's going to make some type of concession or he's putting their worries at ease, the officers, the administration decide that they need to come down even harder on the inmates almost every single time. So remember, Oswald wants to get some change in there. At least I believe he does. The administration, however, especially Superintendent Mancusi, thinks the prisoners should just shut up and serve their time, and he's getting more and more upset that maybe they'll get their way. Like, you gonna tell me I can't beat up prisoners anymore? You're gonna take that one joy in my life away? I look forward all day to coming to this place and beating the fuck out of some prisoners. Now I'm just gonna have to do it to my wife and kids at home. Jeez.
Or bitch koozie.
Bitch koozie. Which could either be a play on his name, or it could be the koozie you put your bitches in.
Yeah, there you go.
Just like your beer cans.
Yeah.
Now, on September 8th, on September 8th, the first spark that would help ignite the building powder keg was struck. About 500 men from A Block were in the rec area. In one corner of the yard, 2 inmates sparred with one another, just fucking around, just a little horseplay. But some of the COs thought that this kind of horseplay needed to be stopped, and the guard supervisor, Senior Lieutenant Richard Maroney, which makes me think of like a fucking Police Academy character.
It's the first, because Mahoney, or Mahoney is the actual Irish pronunciation, but it's the very first thing I thought of as well. Yeah.
You got another CO off in the corner making weird fucking sound effects.
Oh, that's you, the guy. I was thinking of it. What's your man's name? Yeah, the black lad.
Oh, Bobcat?
Yeah, Bobcat's the guy.
Bobcat Goldthwait? No, it was the other one. One of the inmates took off. Like, they come up to him, they're like, hey, stop fighting. One of the inmates just fucking shot off. To mix amongst the other prisoners in the yard. But the other, Leroy Dewar, was taken to explain what was happening. Now, Dewar had just gotten out of a weeks-long key block for disobeying an officer's orders.
So
when Dewar tried to explain to Maroney that what they were doing was just horseplay, Maroney told him to leave the area and go back to the cell he just got out of. Emotions took over. Dewar turned to walk away. Maroney grabbed him by the arm. So Dewar spun and punched Maroney in the middle of the chest. Maroney again told Dewar to leave the yard, and Dewar again hit him in the chest. Then he took off running further into the yard. Maroney took off after him, and the two quickly found themselves surrounded by more than 200 inmates, telling Maroney that if he so much as touched Dewar, he would get hurt. Maroney assured the crowd that Dewar wouldn't be hurt. He just needed to leave the yard, but nobody believed him. It's like, it's too many lies too often.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know what's going to happen.
Yeah, fuck you, Moroni.
Zing! Want some s'mores with that bird? Now, then another inmate, a white man named Ray Lamourie, went up to Maroney and also tried to punch him. Now, they're a little vague on whether he did punch him, whether he tried to punch him, whether he was just kind of chest puffing.
Give him one of those good old classic white guy punches. He's like,
sir, you have sullied my reputation. I give you fisticuffs. Now, Lieutenant Robert Curtis moved to de-escalate. That's not a fucking word. De-escalate.
He moved to descale.
Like a fish. He descaled it like the fish.
Or like a tank.
De-escalate the situation, telling the other COs to leave the area, and they would deal with Dewar and Lamourie later. Remember, all these guys are getting locked up in their own cells. We could take care of this, a little bit simpler way. Curtis was told by the administration that he was to wait until Dewar and Lamourie's company was locked up and then take them to Z Block that evening. Now, it should be said that both Dewar and Lamourie originally came from Auburn and were already seen as troublemakers. So they already have a stigma against them.
When Dewar hit your eye with that other big black eye, that's Lamourie.
That was good. That was fucking good. That goes in the best of category. That's the one that I pull off and I play during In Christmas. That's great. That was fantastic. That was so good. I lost my place. Oh. Now, when the guards came to Dewar's cell, he asked for time to gather some books. They told him no, so he refused to go. They entered the cell and began wrecking the place. The neighboring inmates heard glass shattering, things breaking, and assumed that Dewar was being beaten to death. Moments later, the guards carried out a motionless Dewar from the cell. Then they came for Lamore. Now, Lamore went rather peacefully, but the other inmates began throwing things at the COs. An inmate named William Ortiz threw a full soup can through the bars of his cell and hit an officer in the head. I mean, it was probably one of the small, like, tomato soup cans, not one of those big, chunky Campbell ones that would fucking take out a fucking herd of buffalo.
I was just imaging in my head like a cartoon here. You managed to get completely taken out by a fucking soup can. Well, no, look, it's America, man. We saw the size of your toilet roll. You know, you never know. Yeah. It could be like fucking like a 5-gallon drum. Just like,
oh, cans of soup here are pretty fucking big.
No, I know the ones you're talking
about. Like, it hits his head, and his head just disappears. His body's still there, and he goes, it takes the whole thing. Now, so Ortiz was put under key block, and this escalated things even further. This particular company was one of the most vocal and angry. It included the Mad Bomber Sam Melville, Tom Hicks, a Black Panther from Auburn, and L.D. Barkley, a well-read member of the Panthers. If I'm naming names, you know to remember them. Rumor of Dewar's beating and possible death spread through the entire prison. Now, it should be noted that Curtis and the other guards went to Mancusi and the administration and told them that things were about to go over the edge. He asked for more guards, for the day shift to come in early and the night shift to stay late for help with breakfast. And all they could say to them was, quote, "Who the hell is going to pay for all the overtime?" It's like you are. The prison will. Yeah. The prison will pay for the overtime. People are going to die.
Sure, they don't care.
Nah,
people already have it.
I really don't think they do. I really don't think that they do.
They get a pre-recorded tape, you see, from your man saying, "No, you're not getting any overtime, boys. Sorry for you."
Just put it over the internet. Everyone stay calm. Everyone stay calm. Just all day and all night. Now, the next morning in A Block, September 9th, 1971, many of the prisoners, still worried that Dewar was dead, were let out for breakfast. Tension was at a breaking point. Most knew that even the slightest disturbance would set everything off. Now, everyone in A Block's 5 company was let out except William Ortiz. And many of the prisoners began demanding to know what would happen to him while they were at breakfast. And they were told pretty much nothing, pissing off the inmates. Several of them refusing to go to mess without Ortiz, so they headed back to their cells while the rest headed to mess. Now, what the COs didn't realize was that one of the men was able somehow to get to the main control lever for the cells and flip open Ortiz's cell door. That seems like a glaring building problem.
It's like, why would you on a stealth check? That's what it was. He's obviously one of the white guys. He just walked straight past everyone. Like,
maybe. That's a possibility.
Hello, fellow white person. Hello.
Eddie Murphy in whiteface. It's a possibility. They don't say who did it.
I'm going to complete my tax return. Thank you.
So Ortiz and the others that stayed back hurried to sneak in with the rest of the inmates. The COs noticed their absence from their cells soon after, and they were ordered to send Ortiz back to Key Block, and that all of 5 Company was to be sent back to their cells after breakfast. No one would be getting rec time. So they radioed Officer William Quinn, who was working in Times Square, where the controls for the gates to all the blocks were operated. He was told...
That's what it is. Called the Naked Cowboy.
He was told to lock the gate to A Block down after they returned from breakfast. Now, when all the companies from A Block came back and saw that the gates to their rec yard was locked, many were confused. Then 5 Company was told that they had to return to their cells, that they wouldn't be getting rec time that day. While the guards, including the guards that beat Dewar, came towards the company, they started to freak out. So they do what many do when backed into a corner. They fought. One inmate punched Lieutenant Curtis in the head. Several others joined in. Many others stood there in shock. Like, you knew eventually it was going to happen, but once it happens, it's like, fuck, what's happening?
Yeah.
You know? Then all hell broke loose. Inmates started grabbing whatever they could use as a weapon. While a few ran and hid, others decided to get revenge on COs, and others decided to get revenge on other inmates. Others went to commissary to loot whatever they could. Men screamed, windows shattered. The men that were already
Taco Tuesday. Let's go.
The men that were already in a yard saw what was going on in the hall and began gathering weapons of their own, rakes, boards, helmets, sporting equipment. Officers had their keys taken from them, and inmates began unlocking gates. Officer Quinn began opening the doors to Times Square to let injured COs get to safety. Now, it should be noted that at this time, B, C, and D tunnels were also full of men waiting to go to and come from breakfast. The inmates in A tunnel knew that more officers and police would be there soon to put down this riot. Feeling like trapped rats, they decided they needed to open the large gate that led into Times Square. However, none of the keys they had stolen would work, so they began to force the gate open. Now, they make a point of saying in both books, and at least one of the trials, that when the prison was built, one of the rods that connected the A tunnel gate to the ceiling in Times Square was too short. So the workmen just added on the needed length with a light weld around the outside. Layers of paint and rust hid the defect. That defective bar would be the one that finally broke free. At 9:05 that morning, dozens of men piled into Times Square, demanding that Quinn give up his keys to the rest of the prison. He did as he was told, and then was beat in the head with a 2x4. Quinn went down and was trampled while more and more men poured into Times Square. 2 other officers, Gordon Kelsey and Don Melvin, were also knocked to the floor and beaten. All 3 lay bleeding. The inmates opened the rest of the tunnels and the stairs that led to the catwalks over the tunnels. Also, the room above Times Square was where the COs kept the gas guns and tear gas grenades. Just so you know.
Foreshadowing.
Actually, you would think so, but not too much. We'll see. It took 10 minutes for the riot alarm to go off in the prison. Up until then, the other 120 plus employees of the prison had no idea that there was a full-on revolt. The rioters went section by section, freeing others attacking guards and civilian employees. Guards like Mike Smith. There are a lot of Smiths in this story, just so you know.
A guard like Mr. Generic white boy name from everything.
Pretty much. That's a lot of that. He started gathering employees in the metal shop in order to lock them in to protect them. A prisoner that happened to be in the metal shop at the time, hiding from the riot, decided to take Mike's keys and let in the rioters. They knocked down Officer Smith and began beating him. However, Mike Smith was one of the few officers that had always tried to show the prisoners respect. He treated them like humans instead of animals. They would bring grievances to him, and he would talk with them about the problems in the prison, to which he agreed that things needed to change. He was one of the good ones. So two other inmates...
He beat him lighter.
Two of the inmates, Don Noble, who we had mentioned already, and one other ALF... Don Noble, who we had mentioned as a member of ALF, and one other unnamed inmate jumped to cover Mike, telling the others to leave him alone. The other CO in the shop, however, wasn't such a good guy, and they were all too happy to get some revenge. They then broke into the offices and dragged out the civilians. Noble and the other inmate took Mike Smith as a prisoner, if for anything, to keep him from getting beaten by the other inmates later. G.B. Smith, another Smith, who we heard from earlier, was another guard that was protected by the inmates. One of the inmates grabbed him and told the others, quote, "This is my motherfucking hostage." Then GB was told that he would be taken to the yard as safely as possible. My motherfucking hostage. I swear I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry about it. This motherfucker's mine. He belongs to me. We'll just get you out to the yard. You'll be okay. Do you need something to drink? Do you need something to eat? I'm going to fuck this motherfucker right up the ass. I'm not going to do that. You're going to be perfectly fine. I love you. Is that new cologne? I haven't smelled that one on you. Does Nancy like it? Oh, I bet Nancy loves it. This happened to a handful of COs. A lot of the people that they took hostage, the inmates actually liked. Not all of them. There are some that they can't stand, but there's a lot of hostages that the inmates, they over the course of this, the hostages will be treated better than the inmates had been treated.
Right. Okay.
So, prisoner Richard X. Clark came into Times Square and saw 4 guards that had been beaten coming to, and William Quinn. There's 2 other guards that showed up afterwards, and they also got hit around and were kind of hiding. So the 2 that had already been beaten and these 2 new ones, they were kind of coming to, but William Quinn was still unconscious, bleeding from the head and face. So Clark decides to get them help. He got some others from his company to help him get the 4 that could still walk to A block and lock them in 2 cells for their protection. They then moved Quinn into an office. Clark then went to the gate that separated A block from the admin building and begged the nervous guards there, quote, "There's a hurt guard in here. Can you send a doctor?" They just stared at him.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Like, we're not falling for...
Yeah, and they look and see all the guys hiding behind the oaks like this, like right around the corner, kind of waiting to...
Why did you guys open that door?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun in here. Yeah. Yeah. So he brought Quinn to them and then left. So after they left, Clark goes up a set of stairs and kind of watches down to make sure that they get him. The guards pull Quinn through the gate and he was sent to the hospital. Now, Robert Clark had managed to get all the COs he helped out of the prison, including 6 more. 11 in all got out through the admin gate because of the efforts of Clark and the other prisoners. So it's not just bedlam. There are people there who, they're not just murderers and rapists. They value life.
That's good to hear. Bless them.
Now, off-duty guards came in order to try and retake the prison, but it was obvious that the prisoners were in control. They fell back and decided to wait for the state police. Once there, a group of 30 men went into E Block, which was set apart from the other 4, put out the fires, and took that portion of the prison back. Yeah, the inmates were setting shit on fire, breaking windows, just doing a bunch
riot shit.
Molotov cocktails and all this. I mean, they were wrecking the place.
Yeah.
Then they decided to try for the rest of the prison. Two contingents of correctional officers armed with tear gas canisters, rifles, 38 caliber revolvers, and even a Thompson submachine gun were set up to enter the prison. 100 state troopers joined in with one of the contingent, and by noon that day, they were able to get control of B mess hall and A and C blocks. C block was apparently easy because most of the prisoners there said fuck it and decided to stay in their cells during the riot. They heard a riot going on. I think that C block was filled with more like parole offenders and petty criminals rather than, the murderers and rapists. Political prisoners, stuff like that. And when they heard that the riot was going on, they were just like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm good.
So I got an unpaid parking ticket. I ain't getting mixed up in this shit.
Now, it should be stated that just because they decided to stay in their cells and the COs and the people who and the officers that retake the prison know they're in their cells through the whole thing, doesn't mean that they won't get reprisal. Doesn't mean that later on bad things won't happen to them. And it doesn't mean that when the trials happen afterwards that a lot of these people won't still stand trial for the riot, even though they had literally nothing to do with it. But
it's the American justice system for you.
Yep.
Sweet, sweet justice for all, unless you're black or Latino or, anything else.
Anything other than white or some Asian.
A white Republican.
Yeah. Now, 1,281 prisoners were still out and in charge of the rest of the prison. By the time they had decided to settle in D Yard, they had control of 2 tunnels and Times Square, with 42 officer and civilian hostages. It was a tale of 2 riots. At some parts of the prison, inmates were happy, sharing barrels of prison wine and enjoying the spoils of the commissary, while in other places, there were inmates attacking other inmates, sexually assaulting them, threatening others that didn't want to participate in the revolt to, quote, get to D Yard or die. Others raided the medical center to steal drugs and get high. Someone had to take charge. Enter again Richard X. Clark. It was him and his other Muslim prisoners that decided that the hostages needed to be taken care of and protected. So they took them to the center of D Yard, and the Muslim prisoners formed 2 circles around them, an inner and an outer, to protect them from inmates that would otherwise do them harm. Roger Champion, it's a weird name. Like, I know Chapman, like my ex-wife's last name was Chapman, but this is Champion.
Champion.
It's kind of weird. But they called him Champ. He took to a bullhorn, got on a table in the corner of the yard, and pleaded with the men to stop fighting each other and work together. And the men listened. L.D. Barkley, Herbert X. Blyden, Don Noble, and Frank Lott, some of the men from ALF, joined Champ at the table to restore some sort of order to D Yard. They were then joined by Sam Melville, Tommy Hicks, and Young Lords leader Mariano de Lu Gonzalez. They formed the committee that would lead and negotiate on behalf of the prisoners. They set up a speaker system for announcements to the rest of the men. They ordered to cease all drug taking, sex acts, and hoarding of the food and cigarettes, and they were told put all weapons under the table. Then they set up a security team led by Frank Big Black Smith. Of course, the lead of your security team is going to be Frank Big Black Smith.
And he still doesn't know what's going on at this stage.
He's like, what is happening? I mean, I didn't get any breakfast this morning, so I'm a little hungry. I don't know what's I used to see as like a black John C. Reilly. I don't know what's fucking going on, man. I didn't get any breakfast. I'm out here. People just throw it. I don't know. I like my Jesus in like a tuxedo, like a little baby Jesus. By the end of the day, they had tents set up for housing, a community dining area, a medical center, a security force, and a democratically elected representatives. Now was the time for negotiations. Yeah, they set all that up within just like a couple hours.
Like a music festival.
They got out tents.
Prison Palooza.
They set up tables so people could come eat. Got all the food in one spot so people could come get food.
Get your hot links. Get your hot links here.
One of the prisoners had medical experience. So they went to the medical center, took out everything, brought it out, had a whole little like office set up for that. The security force was set up, and then they started. Each company started electing representatives to bring what they wanted from this to come out of this riot to them, so they could start, negotiations. And that is where we will pick up with said negotiations, the death that will bring them to a screeching halt, the violent retaking of the prison, and the massive cover-up that will ensue on the second and final episode of Attica.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
Yeah, the riot itself, which is really a short-lived riot. It's not this long draw. It's really a short-lived actual riot. What comes after is a really long weekend, pretty much for a lot of people. But again, the riot itself is not what this story is really known for. What will take place in the next episode? It's fucking horrifying, and the fact that some of the people who were there doing these things are still alive, not in prison, never spent a day in prison, never even spent a day in court for what they did, knowing that they got away with just outright murder, is pretty infuriating. And the people who do go to trial for the horrible things that happened are the ones who didn't really do a whole lot other than have a riot in a prison. It gets bad. Like outright murder.
Oh, so cool.
Not really, but
sounds wonderful. But you know what I mean.
Outright murder. Huh, cool.
Yeah, sweet. That's what I'm here for.
I'm here for the murder. Yeah. Thank you to our patrons, Willow Quinn Fowler, Nevin, Sam Brers, and Max. I'm just going to say it like that from now on, since I always get his last name. Sam Brers. You can sign up as well at patreon.com/torturepod. 1 week of our cult leader tier for free. Connect with us on the socials at torturepod. Email torturepod@gmail.com. Buy me a coffee at torturepod. redcircle.com/people/torturepod for the merch. Again, all Pride merch profits donated to the Triver Project. What was that?
It's Red Bubble. You said Red Circle.
Oh, fuck. You know why I said Red Circle? It's because I have it written out as Red Circle. Don't go to Red Circle. That's where we post that. Redbubble.com/people/torturepod. And go rate and review, wherever you can. Thank you again to our sponsors. You can support us by supporting them. Dan, any words of wisdom?
Yep. A couple of things. Don't sweat the petty things, and don't pet the sweaty things.
Nice. Yeah. I am sweaty right now. I have flops. I don't know if you could see me glistening in the camera right now, but I am covered in flop sweat because it is so fucking hot out here.
You have the opposite problem right now, so.
Yeah, you motherfucker. I sent him a screenshot of my fucking weather app. It's like 100 degrees. Feels like 107. He sends me something from his 14 degrees Celsius. I look it up. It's like 57. It's like, you motherfucker.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was a nice evening.
Anyway, did you have another one? You said a couple things.
Oh, I can save it for the next one.
That's fine.
It's more of a
you'll have to do one then.
Dad joke. So.
Oh, okay.
/ technically piece of advice, I suppose.
Nice.
Depends.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'll save it
Alright.
because I don't think of these things too often. So had to steal yours last week.
She did, but it was.
Look,
perfect.
you set me up for that though. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, that was all me. That was pretty good. All right, well, everybody, buckle up for the next one because it's a little infuriating. Some of the shit. I'm not gonna say that the things that happen go as far as like Nanking, but it's not great.
Yeah.
It's not great.
I'm gonna have
Let's
to
just
watch
say
one of
that.
the movies.
Yeah.
Gonna
Let's
have
just
to.
say that the whole we gotta do what's right for the hostages. Once they go in there, yeah, they don't care about the hostages. Hostages are just fodder. It's like it'll be like in Die Hard, where the FBI agents are talking about how many hostages they can lose, and they still see it as a success.
Oh, the collateral damage. Yeah.
Yeah, it ends up being like.
Stand in the car. Stand in the car. Fucking hate that.
All right, everybody, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. We'll see you.
Bye.